Hello and welcome to the opening night of Courch Festival, coming to you from Galway Town Hall Theatre. I'm Louise Bruton and I am delighted to be your host for the evening. It's been so long since any of us have been in a room filled with applause, so I ask that if you're watching at home, you do just that. Soon these empty rooms will be full of laughter and big reunions, but for now, as we've been doing for so long, we adjust. The times were grand in size and we were small, said Yvonne Boland in her poem Domestic Violence. And in the last year, we've seen our immediate world shrink in size, but as we live stream this event here, we know that we are reaching out to people as close as Tuam and as far away as Tokyo. Hey, Iz. We've learned to cope in new and strange ways, not just with the wild appearance of our hair, but by keeping our distance from the people we love and the people we just about tolerate too. For some of us, time stood still, gratingly slow, while others finally had the chance to reclaim time that was lost to the commute. While it's easy to put a twee spin on the ways we kept ourselves entertained or distracted, with banana bread somehow becoming the great emblem of the pandemic, there is a greater devastation that's impossible to ignore. Lives have been lost, businesses have been placed behind locked doors with staff unsure of their future. Unemployment is worsening, and sometimes it's unbearable to think of what actually lies ahead of us when all of this blows over. Through music, prose, poetry, and general ponderings, our exquisite guests, Maya Sophia, Oein DeBhairduin, Suad Aldara, Arnold Thomas Fanning, and Una Min Kavanagh and Lisa McInerney reflect on their experiences of finding, losing, and maintaining connection throughout the year. First up this evening, we have singer-songwriter Maya Sophia. Maya released her debut album, Bath Time, in 2019, and I had the honour of giving it 5 stars upon its release in the Irish Times. With every listen, each star gets a little bit brighter. Performing the glitter, please give a warm welcome to Maya Sophia. Made of soul with a passion for poetry and preserving the literature of the travelling community. Oein DeBhairduin is a storyteller, an activist, and a great connector. A board member of several Mincéirí community groups, including the Irish Traveller Movement and Mincéir Whidden, Oein will be sharing his musings on the urban campfire.
Campfire in the rain, Molly Chinny Robican. This is a tale of connection during the time of COVID, where boundaries have shrunk and where limits have been teased, and where commonality of want was enough, in part, for communities to meet. I have lived in Dublin for a few years, among so many people I knew to see, but never actually knew them beyond the seeing of them. What follows are truthful snippets of my diary from late March and early April of 2020, where an ancient tradition brought a new friend, and being told to stay away from others made me beyond eager to gather us all up. The arrival, Get Militia. I heard the news of the lockdown while on a bus home from work. The rattle of the bus was nothing to the sense of being shaken by the words. Anticipated in ways, of course, but still unexpected. A long breath of exhaled hair passed through my lips, tense enough by the report that I almost whistled. I stuffed my phone into my satchel and listened to some songs, loud in 80s, all power ballads and high hair, until the bag, of course, began to hum like a stirred beehive. The comments and texts came in waves, and the crescent, of course, of changing plans, and then of the trough of more interesting statements, ones I had sensed that other travellers, no matter the medium, were probably sharing too. We can't go out. Sure, when could we even get in? The landscape, Ara Ledoux, a week later. Now my mind is busy. Not with a murmur or crackle of static, but like a tap that's been left slightly loose. The same thought arriving again and again like a heavy droplet, splashing out and waking the corners of my reflections. I'm thinking about connection, how the sacred fires of old have changed and how they've grown, adapted in time. Who's to say the mobile device doesn't carry some of Prometheus's flame, or that the TV has not a bit of the crimson sparkle flint from the hammer of the blacksmith upon the anvil? In times of change, dramatic as it is, we reach out, we expand, we learn, we grow, we zoom. But also, we can return to older ways, ancient ways, spaces of primal understanding. I moved some potted plants around the backyard. A trapped lawn cemented long before our arrival. A man-made blanket of all the potential that sleeps beneath it. Pots move and I realise it's a circle, laid out like two crescent moons kissing tops and toes. And then I think to myself, wouldn't an urban campfire be a fine thing? The circling salut the next day. I rummaged for stones, pebbles and rocks. I found 3 red building blocks salvaged from the front wall after a driving lesson had gone awry. No sooner had I laid them out in a tightly formed frame, angular, like a diamond, than when a tuft of hair, 2 grey eyes and the bridge of a nose appeared over the wall. You look busy. No, not too much busy at all. Just trying to build myself a campfire. Oh, you can't be burning rubbish. No rubbish, just thinking about it like a barbecue. But instead of steaks and sausages, we might, when all this is over, have stories and songs. Grand so. Well, if you ever do get around to actually building it. The stacking. Grill agree the next day. In the morning, I opened the front door, and what was I to find but several done stores for life bags, each with their handles tied with a sanitation wipe. The unexpected sacks filled to overflowing rocks of sandstone, shale and jasper. But also there was something there that couldn't be seen in the folds of thick black polyester. There was interest. Around 6 o'clock, with the walls and base of the newly born campfire laid out, each rock laying and resting on top of each other. Now I thought to myself, the Connemara answer would be so proud of such a feat. I decided it would be a good idea to see how it would react to a lick of fire. I cut the sides of 3 cereal boxes, just enough so that it'd still stand, and more than enough so I could tear them into small matte grey curly pieces, until there was a small pile in the heart of the hearth. A quick strike of the match and a gentle guard of my hand gave the flame some rest from the passing breeze until it got to know itself. Wisps of smoke and curl like fresh green ferns and dew, but silvering, excited like a spectre, looking and wanting to dance, from form and then into the ether. Short-lived it was, but it felt spectacular. Even if I was standing alone in a circle made for people. Before bed, I noticed a folded note crumbled on the edge, looking penned like it was written in haste, stuffed in the corner of the letterbox. A nameless warning not to burn too much in case we would ruin fresh wash linen. The kindling Ardavan a week later. As I returned back from walking the dog and fumbling with my keys, I heard the words that I didn't quite decipher belt out from the window of the neighbours. Soon enough, it was to be followed by the owner of them, the same tuft of hair, grey eyes and nose, now accompanied by the rest of the face, framed with a freshly lit cigarette that hung from the right edge off his mouth. That didn't last long. The walk? No, the campfire. I haven't given up on that yet. It's a bit of charwood from summer left in the shed. It'd be a nice thing, isn't it? Well, it could be, with a crowd for company. Right, sure, you throw it on tonight and I'll join you. Lockdown, though. I mean, I'll join you from the back window. Bit odd, no, said my awkward gob. Says the gombeen, he replied, who's trying to build a campfire, and the door slammed shut. Dusk arrived, and so did a breeze trickling with a haze of rain. I buttoned up, took a chair from the kitchen, and wrestled open the umbrella. The fire's dance was a laboured one. So with a soft sway back and forth, we took turns in the rain. From the corner of my eye, I could see the top left window of the neighbour's home creak open, like a half-stifled evening yawn, until there was a mug of tea in the windowsill and the words, "So, where's the song?" And that's how it started. He from his window, me from my chair, and us, in our odd little way, sharing. And the amber shola. It's grown since then. The neighbours still keep the cup on the sill. Number 21 has taken to posting articles of the pandemic from newspapers, so I can twist them and wax them for the burning. Mary at the corner of the green promises tales of East Cork when times do change, and more curious minds await the eve when the gate can be drawn, people can gather, and the campfire can be shared. Gralty, thank you.
Thank you so much, Owen. As we continue to battle with the 2K, 5K and 20K restrictions, or have been kept within our counties for much longer than we were initially told, many people have not been able to see their families or their friends for very long periods of time. However, travel restrictions are not new for Syrian storyteller, data scientist and software engineer Suad Aldara, who is also this festival's Pen Common Currency writer in residence. Sharing her story, 3 years in solitude, she talks about raising her 3-year-old son during the lockdown and how he's only met his grandparents through the phone. Please welcome Suad.
3 years of solitude. He is 3. My eyes are reflected in his. People say he has my face, and I wonder if I still have one left. He is 3. I taught him how to count and how to walk, and he taught me how to smile. Every day, we leave the house before sunset. We turn right and walk within our 2-kilometer radius. We read the house's numbers out loud, and we run and we laugh like there's nothing wrong with this world. We return home knowing that the next day we can left. He is 3. I order a new toy for him to replace the closed playground, a book to replace the story time at the library where we spent our Fridays, a new top that he will probably grow out of before anyone gets to tell him how cute he looks in it. I order anything for him just to enjoy a guilty pleasure when the postman rings the intercom announcing a delivery, and I'll pretend for the few seconds before I answer that a guest is visiting. My mother's face appears on my phone screen. His smile stretches. Tete, he calls for his grandma. She smiles and her eyes are full of unleashed tears. If only I can hug you, my dear, if only. He asks for his grandfather, and the camera is moving around my childhood house until it stops at a bed with an old man lying in it. Jiddu, he screams in joy for grandpa. He is 3. He does not know Jiddu is sick and can't move and can't remember him. But he blows kisses anyway while counting to 10 before he gets distracted by the sound of the TV. He forgets about the imaginary creatures living on my phone as soon as I end the call, but I don't. He is 3, and he never got hugged by them. They never had his tiny hands wrapped around their necks. They never saw him before he had teeth, before he had hair. They never had a piece of his first or second or third birthday cake. He is 3. We leave the house before sunset. This time, we go left. He sees our friendly neighbor smiling back at him. He points and shouts, "Uncle!" I look back and forth between the two and realize for the first time how much my neighbor looks like my brother. The full beard, the eyeglasses, the dense black hair. I feel a punch in my stomach. I nod yes just to make him curb his excitement. Yes, yes, this is uncle. And I explain to my confused neighbor, and he agrees to be his uncle for the few seconds we pass by him each day. He is 3, born before the pandemic and before the lockdown, in a different crisis and a different lockdown. It's easier to say I can't travel and be with my family and friends because of the pandemic than to say it's because of borders, paper borders, thrones, passports, and other meaningless things. He is 3, and soon he'll be 4, and I don't know if the imaginary creatures from the phone will ever be real one day for him when he is not 3 anymore. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. That was gorgeous. Now, everyone at home, I hope you're going to keep that applause going and maybe throw in a few cheers. It's been a while, as we have Maya Sophia coming up again to perform her song, Saint Aquinas.
Journey on, forgotten one. The time for you to knock here has been and it has gone. The night that you lit a black candle in my kitchen, you followed me to the bedroom and there I let you in again. Oh, Saint Aquinas of the ancestors came and wept to me and shook me from my sleep and told me, let go of what is bitter, hold only what is sweet. And something then was lost to me, dissolved due to a dream. Journey on in your mother's car. Come pick me up, I'm much too drunk and I don't know where you are. But I followed you out of the window at night to the Sally Gap, where I rest my head on the dashboard and watch you wring your hands. And you pulled up at the edge and said, I don't think we can just be friends. So I say, let's drive to Scandinavia. You say, no time for jokes. I say, what if all your big plans are just 3 small plans in a trench coat? And I know that I'm insufferable. I know you had to go. But if you ever come round here again, you'll have to let me know. Journey on, we are parallel. I hear my name on the wind, sometimes your voice as clear as a bell. Oh, Saint Aquinas of the ancestors came and wept to me and shook me from my sleep and told me, let go of what is bitter, hold only what is sweet. And something opened up in me, dissolved into a dream.
What a performance. You might say it was a 5-star performance. Now, while I use this grand new abundance of time to watch all 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer twice, author and playwright Arnold Thomas Fanning spent his time a little bit better. Based in Cork, he stayed in contact with his friends and family across the country by turning the pages together of 18th century philosopher Jacques Rousseau's work. Here to share Reading Rousseau in a Time of Plague, please welcome Arnold Thomas Fanning.
Hello. I moved to a small town in County Cork a couple of years ago, and so I miss my friends and family back in Dublin, where previously I'd lived for most of my life. At first, I managed to overcome this by returning to the capital on visits as frequently as possible and catching up with everyone there. But the travel restrictions set under the pandemic meant an end to all that, and I found myself feeling increasingly missing those I knew well. Before leaving Dublin, however, I'd formed a book club. It's the world's smallest book club, consisting of just myself and my friend Paul, a playwright, stage director, and drama facilitator who lives in the south of the city. Despite my moving counties, Paul and I decided to keep our book club going and stay with our book club commitments, challenging ourselves to work our way through a book together, then having long discussions about what we had read over the phone. And this practice continued even after the pandemic began. The book we chose for the book club discussions that coincided with the onset of the pandemic and subsequent lockdowns was The Confessions by 18th century philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a seminal work in the development of life writing and memoir, a genre I am particularly interested in. Early on in the book, Rousseau states his objectives for the Confessions in an address to God. I have bared my secret soul as thou thyself hast seen it, eternal being. So let the numberless legion of my fellow men gather round me and hear my confessions. Let them groan at my depravities and blush for my misdeeds. But let each one of them reveal his heart at the foot of thy throne with equal sincerity, and may any man who dares say, I was a better man than he. This was compelling and intriguing writing to me, so I got down to reading the Confessions with enthusiasm, buoyed up by the support of my book club friend in Dublin. And so the book club continued to thrive, my book discussions with Paul keeping us connected despite the continuing separation. But then something else happened. I began to feel a connection with Rousseau himself. An often bumbling, hapless, and self-pitying figure, he nonetheless becomes increasingly appealing when he talks about the one thing he is passionate about in life, the simple act and pleasure of walking. Never did I think so much, Rousseau writes, exist so vividly, and experience so much. Never have I been so much myself, if I may use that expression, the journeys I've taken alone and on foot. Here, then, was a man I could identify with, for that simple pleasure, walking, is one that I share with him, and that has calmed and settled and restored me throughout successive lockdowns, when there were few other alternatives for physical exercise. Moreover, Rousseau is clear that walking helps him with his imagination, writing, and creativity, going on to say, there is something about walking which stimulates and enlivens my thoughts. When I stay in one place, I can hardly think at all. My body has to be on the move to set my mind going. On reading these words, I felt a profound connection with Rousseau, despite the separation of centuries that existed between us. I too use walking as a way to stimulate my imagination and creativity, and regard the time I spend walking to be an integral part of the writing process. My walks, interspersed between blocks of writing, helping in the generation of ideas for when I do sit down at my desk to write. I can only meditate when I'm walking, says Rousseau. When I stop, I cease to think. My mind only works with my legs. Likewise, I find that when stuck with a piece of writing I'm working on, in a knot over it as I think of it, that a long walk will often unravel the problem and leave me with a solution. Worries, concerns, dilemmas, anxieties too all get worked out as I walk, and the more I walk, the more I reach the meditative state that Rousseau invokes in his Confessions. I have never been able to do anything with my pen in my hand and my desk and paper before me, writes Rousseau. It is on my walks amongst the rocks and trees that I compose in my head. Such words resonated, inspired, and connected with me. My own walking during lockdowns have not by necessity taken me very far in terms of distance, confined as I've been to within a few kilometers of where I live. But I've been fortunate in that I can walk out the door and within a few minutes be beside a riverbank, reach a forest, see a body of water. Enough to feel like a change of scene or pace, to make my looped walks of 30 minutes or an hour and a half be of immeasurable benefit to my sense of well-being. My walks take me through the town I live in, past numerous examples of public art and monuments and statues of historic notables, and past more contemporary monuments to modern life, like the supermarkets and the phone shops and the petrol stations, out a lane through farmland, constantly changing and worked on with the seasons, into an ancient forest of native woodland, which edges onto an estuary where on a good day I can see egrets, herons, swans, ducks, not to mention seagulls and what appear to be endless crows. Once I was lucky enough to see a jay, but only once. These walks of mine typically have been a pressure release at times, the one thing to dissipate the nervous, jangling anxiety and fractious pent-up energy of pandemic, the very repetition and familiarity acting as a balm, conversely breaking the monotony of lockdown by the very fact that, despite there being the same walks, each one does manage to bring something new or unique to itself in its execution. Walking then became a salve and helped with a lot of the pressures of lockdown, even while I was still dealing with a sense of isolation that being cut off from family and friends entailed. But there was something else I had to contend with, because the fact is, I always find it hard to focus on reading during pandemic times. All that nervous energy was playing with my powers of concentration, making it difficult to sit and read for any length of time. It was easier to get sucked into scrolling through social media or 24-hour news online all day, harder to commit to anything that took time and consideration. So it helped that I was in the book club as I read. I would have found it hard to get so deeply into the confessions as I did, to make the discoveries of the passages that resonated without my friends' encouragement. The Confessions, after all, is a densely written and at times slow-moving 600-page opus expressed in often archaic language. But my friends' encouragement fired my own, helping me to persevere when my concentration flagged. And so I continued with my reading for the book club, finding those connections with Rousseau along the way that meant so much to me. I'm glad I did. Because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have got as far as book 7, where I learned that Rousseau also got caught up in a plague, in a situation that, while for a briefer period was comparable to our own. It was in 1743, while travelling through Genoa, arriving by boat to that port, then an independent republic, now a part of Italy, that Rousseau found himself subjected to a quarantine of 21 days, due to an incidence of an infectious outbreak of plague in the area from which he had embarked on his journey. Rousseau, typically contrary, chooses not to be confined with his fellow passengers on the vessel on which he's arrived in port, but rather alone in the lazzaretto, or hospital for infectious diseases, which, as he says himself, was a large 2-story building, absolutely bare, in which I found neither window, nor table, nor bed, nor chair. Forced to improvise in this extreme and austere form of self-isolation, this enforced 21-day quarantine, Rousseau nonetheless makes the most of it and does what he always does. He sets to writing. I took out some paper and an inkstand, he says, and then he sets up a desk and chair made from his travelling trunk, puts out the dozen books he's travelled with, and so creates a library. Finally, and despite his confinement indoors to the limited space of the lazzaretto, he is able to indulge in the pursuit that has fired his imagination and creativity, that has helped his writing, and has kept him going, connected him with his very sense of self or his life. He starts to walk. The great doors of the lazzaretto with their huge locks were shut upon me, he writes, and I was left at liberty to walk as I would from room to room and up and down stairs, and everywhere I found the same bare solitude. Walking, writing, solitude. Rousseau pursues the same passions that have always sustained him, even in quarantine and self-isolation, even in a time of plague, as he did formerly. As I did too, as far as I could. I kept up with my reading for the book club, kept up my discussions on the Confessions with my friend in Dublin, kept up with that connection as best I could despite living in a time of plague, of pandemic, kept up with my reading generally and my writing to the best of my ability and powers of concentration, and of course, kept up with my pursuit of walking, which helped with my writing. I was, and I still am, sorely tested by all that we are going through in this time, by these restrictions and confinements. I feel this in my levels of anxiety, that what I am going through threatens and impinges upon my mental well-being. But Rousseau, I find, has some words to say on this too. Lacking the right circumstances, a man born with acute sensibility would feel nothing and would die without ever having known his true nature. Perhaps the circumstances I am living through now are teaching me my true nature. One who likes to walk, to write, to read, and who maintained himself through the challenges of a pandemic with these simple pursuits. But above all, these circumstances show that I am one who needs to stay connected with others, even if it is by such simple means as being a member of a book club, discussing the Confessions of Jean-Jacques Rousseau over the phone with a friend in a time of plague. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arnold. Hopefully your story will inspire book clubs and hiking clubs to finally put aside their differences and collaborate. Now we have Gaeilgeoir author and TikTok sensation Una Mincéirí, who is used to living a fast-paced life that matches the pace of her online success. Her debut book on Shut, which follows her adoption from Vietnam to her childhood in Kerry and beyond, was released in 2019, and she has become a firm voice online when it comes to race, identity, and the Irish language. Reading Ceangailte, which is the Irish word for connected, she talks about the intensive over-connection that has been going on and the relief she experienced when she retreated from the noise. Please welcome Una Ming.
Kengelta. You're sitting at your desk in your home office, your office being your childhood bedroom. You place a filter on your background to hide the mess of clothes and unkept bed sheets. A fresh coffee by your side, ready to go cold. As you log into the call, you notice that no one is there yet. You turn off your camera. Then there is a ping, and another one, and another one, and you wait for the meeting to begin. Do you quit? You're still connecting. Hi, will tu know me close? Mary, I'm afraid you're on mute there now. Oh, tadime. All right, now that everyone's here, we can start. Strange times, isn't it? Ag tús na pandéime cafa a adbháil go raibh meascán de scitamíní agus áras orm. De bhí nahin rud nó. We had to adapt to change, a weirdness like never in our lifetime. Dare I say it was somewhat thrilling. And as the hours, the months, Linleanta agus na Miha went by, and now a year, we have been connected like never before. This connection, or over-connection, started for me in February 2020. I was just after doing an event in London. Happily amongst peers in Mincéirí agus Gael Gori, the Viesar Bish gus Lontosta le Mibre. I just hugged a friend of mine who I'd met in person for the first time in the city, shaking hands with so many, but little did I know that that would be the last hug or handshake I would receive in, well, what date is it now? And after flying home to Ireland and just a few weeks later, we were ar Food na Tíre in Brasach. I've been self-employed for many years now, but never have I experienced the 5th level of mental intrusion that technology has taken up in such a short period of time. We have become even more addicted to pings, pop-ups, red notifications, and scheduling video calls. The ironic thing is that video calls were not new to me. In fact, I did Zoom calls every month anyway with a support group online, but that single hour each month, that was enough for me. Now everyone was online, every event was online, while of course there were many fantastic buntáistí and benefits to it all. There was also this immense overwhelm and fatigue that filtered beyond my morning coffee. Clients began to insist on video calls, often not needed. Should this call have been an email? Probably. But we all wanted human connection beyond digital means. Ní hain joke a bheith de hí os córs choláin don lár fad. And as I got sucked into this faux digital connection, from the meetings to the voice calls to the endless comparison of who's doing better than I was, sourdough, dry robes, and for some reason on his birthday, everyone had a photo with Michael D. I knew mentally I was failing. De bhí sus olmhór de dhí or am na man ho síalte, de bhís braindómh agus mé cahabholach amartha. I'd become a slave to connection, to overconnection, to overwhelm. And then I was given respite in a place far removed from it all, the Gaeltacht. Right before we were thrown into severe lockdown, there was a small window of opportunity that I was honoured to be given. Roniach Shachter idir scríóirí fili agus dromadóri agus the vísar bhuinnemuice nuair bhuras an rifos chunimacht. 11 days in the Gaeltacht, and not just any Gaeltacht, Kilreelig. We were separated into our own stone cottages on the cliffs overlooking the Atlantic Ocean in Kerry. There was no Wi-Fi, no television, and while I could get phone coverage, I deleted every single social media app from my phone with instant ease. Before an fuisheverm gach lo a chahav húslam cafe kun airí na graine reiskin agus í ag dul na lí sníhe. Bá dúchas an seanna chuí sean na conil an so sitte seanna srolvaile. And it was here that I threw myself headfirst into fully concentrated and fully energized work. De bréas ar ma laur agus na honnig fiaus mór ar ma bhion agus ma bhiarlánta agus mé an leis. Agus sníhe, scrívis costine lim smuinti agus laur, gan na man ho síalte agus gan vortar be. Honnig fuisheverm. I entered Kilreelig on October 2nd with an idea in 3,000 words. I left with 25,000. And that is the power of switching off. For people like me who work full-time online, having that separation between work and connection is vital. While many of us cannot realistically afford to completely disappear into the mountains, we can step back. I now make a conscious effort to minimize overconnection and not to let, in particular, my phone control me. I question if everything does need to be a video call, and I've learned that not responding to an email in 10, 15, even 20 minutes is okay. Your time is the most valuable thing you own. Deep breaths, deconnection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Una Ming. Now, if any of you have been inspired to log off, please wait until the end of Courch Festival at the end of the month. Thank you very much. For her final song of the night, please give an extra warm welcome to Maya Sophia, who'll be performing Smile, Please.
Here's my face. Don't look, don't speak, don't spit, and don't bleed. We'll make this as easy as can be. But me, I'm the queen of Blessington Street, and this city is rolled out like a carpet for me. When I danced all the way from the basin to the sea, I felt a little volatile, I felt a little free. Smile, please. Smile, please. Look down the lens and show your teeth. And overnight they'll clean the streets, and I'll strip my bed and bundle up my sheets and repeat, this will not be the undoing of me. This will not be the undoing of me. This will not be the undoing of me. This will not be the undoing. When I met a man with long-fingered hands, he picked me apart like the meat from a crab claw. He had me unraveled, had me unstitched at the seams. He said I was too volatile, too sensitive. Smile, please. Smile, please. Look down the lens and show your teeth. And I'll spit blood in the bathroom sink. Isn't it comforting to still find something repulsive? And I'll give you these parts of me, expose myself indiscriminately. And I've got gaps in my teeth, and I've got gaps in my memory. Smile, please. Smile, please. Look down the lens and make this easy. Good. This is how it has to be. Smile, please. Smile, please. Smile, please. Smile, please.
Thank you so much, Maya. I think I speak for all of us when we say that we cannot wait to see you perform a gig soon. Now, the words community and spirit have been thrown around a lot this year and misinterpreted to suit different people's needs. Lisa McInerney, author of Glorious Heresies, Blood Miracles, and the very soon-to-be-released Rules of Revelations, breaks down the harsh lessons learned about solidarity in her piece, The Wands. The last speaker of the night and the owner of the most sparkly boots. Let's hear it for Lisa.
So, I am lucky enough to live only a couple of miles from the woods, and I go there every couple of days for a run. There really hasn't been much else to do in lockdown, so I've been engaging in self-improvement with some trepidation as to the absolute dose I might potentially become. God be with the days when we have better things to do than self-improve. In the course of improving myself, I have acquired some nemeses. Wands. The wands. Wait till I tell you about the wands. The wands like to go walking in the woods as I go running. Yes, it's true that the term one is gendered, and yes, I am annoyed to admit that the wands are largely women, although you do get the odd honorary male one. They, because they are only ever found in groups, go down to the woods to meet their friends, to get some exercise, to go over the news. Do you know what social distancing is? Yeah? The ones do not. They have no idea. 2 meters? Not a clue. They will not stay 2 meters from each other, and they certainly will not stay 2 meters from me. They will not move into single file, lest the fairy folk steal away the one in the rear. They are going to take up as much of the path as they can, and they are going to be affronted if I flap my arms out wide or if I manage to grunt, 2 meters, please, as I pass. Because the pandemic is inconvenient. Other people are inconvenient. Having to question their behavior is inconvenient, considering that all they are doing is walking and talking and just existing in a very natural state. The ones infuriate me, and it further infuriates me that I am infuriated by them. Like I say, they're just existing. They're just doing what it is that people do, socializing, discussing, joking. It's just that they're doing it in a way that we know now for this endless moment is risky and easily modified. I mean, just move into single file. But you know, I get it. Sometimes you forget. And in order for the ones to remember to adhere to the new guidelines or rules, they need to accept that we are all in this together. And it is hard to accept that we are all in this together. Because first of all, the people who like to say things like, we're all in this together, are the same people who said things like, we all partied. And that feels very much like responsibility. And if that doesn't work, blame is being shifted onto those who feel powerless in the face of this threat. You yourself, you alone, you don't feel like you can stop the spread of this thing. No, that's mostly a task for our government, our healthcare system, or Gardaí. And lads, they have not performed as well as they might have. For lots of reasons that we won't get into now. But the point being that a bargain was struck, and if one end is not being held up, it is very hard to listen to the lectures of those who are leaving things slack. So I can understand why the ones have got a bit deaf to the message. But secondly, it is hard to accept that we are all in this together, because accepting that we are all in this together means having the humility to know that we are not individuals, nor casual collections of individuals. The day of the individual is gone. The absolute unit was a joke. Sinn Féin is a surface level slogan. Self-improvement is just bashing against the inner walls of a very, very small box. We are not even just families or localities or workforces. We are one. We are a mass. One person contracts this novel virus in China, and we are all of a sudden, all of us, at risk. Connection is not optional. Connection is the fundamental rule of this life. We develop only in learning from others. We move only in conjunction. What was the first thing we missed when these restrictions came in? It wasn't click and collect. It was hugging family and chatting with friends and walking hand in hand somewhere beautiful, or sitting forwards with other cinephiles as the lights went down. It was moshing. It was singing on a city street at 1 a.m. with strangers. It was gossiping with the hairdresser. It was school. Would you believe? We miss school. And it's so weird to me to see this bullheaded assertion that they're all right, like the ones are all right, their mammy's been vaccinated, that they're strong as a horse, that they don't have underlying conditions, that they've got a buddy beside them for the chat, so they are not moving into single file in the 2 seconds it would take a very exasperated runner to pass them, and so feck everyone else. But there is no everyone else. This is it. This is us. Self-care means caring for all of us, even when it's inconvenient or actually feels unfair. I want to trust this diverse, awkward, complicated mass of us to think, at least in part, as a whole. If you won't pause your conversation long enough to move out of the way of a runner, how can you move yourself to vote for the good of a country or to make the changes that'll mind the planet? Look, 'tis grand. We're coming into summer and soon enough we'll all be full of vaccine and we can get back to our loved ones and maybe even to the pub. And we can come together and we can plan and we can grieve and we can rebuild and we can assess and we can learn, knowing that it's our natural state to be in and top of one another, but knowing too that we're damn good at adapting. Like, I'm fed up running anti-clockwise. I will have faith in us. And I'll be back in close, sweating in on top of the wands before they know it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. We're definitely in this together, but just get out of the bloody way. It is impossible for any of us to have had the same experience, but by hearing the voices of the many people here in this room, we are coming to learn the hands that 2020 dealt and the ones that 2021 will soon reveal. The idea of connection is personal, and when societal structures fall loose, the priority to connect can fall down to others, yourself, nature, or art. Still in a state of transition and feeling small when everything grows and retracts and grows and retracts, we don't need to put a full stop on how this year has changed us. It will continue to change in ways unknown. And with that, I would like to give thank you so much to our guests, Maya Sophia, Oein DeBhairduin, Sue Deldara, Arnold Thomas Fanning, Una Mincéirí, and Lisa McInerney for sharing a little part of their world with us. Thank you to Kirch Festival for allowing us to fill the Town Hall Theatre, and thank you to everyone at home for tuning in and connecting with us. May we never have a year like this again, but may we never forget the strength that we found to move our way through it.